Moving on to Salvation, and again, I watched this movie for the first time in like 5 years, I think it was, but this was only the second time ever that I've watched it. I know that much. The others, I think I did rewatch at one point. What's up with the camera? I don't know. So, I do like the different angle that this movie, is trying to go for. Actually putting this into the future so we can see what's going on. Give us a different concept because they kind of had raised the bar on the original concept a little. Well, you were about as high as you could reasonably go, and that kind of a thing. So, changing it up, definitely a good idea. Introducing a couple of, new characters to get the idea that it's still a little bit more complex than just humans versus the machines, which is all they talk about in the original trilogy. And then trying to introduce the character of Marcus to put, the conflict on what exactly is human, what exactly is machine, that kind of a thing. And then introducing the idea of what is the correct way, to attack the machines. That's interesting questions. That kind of a thing. And some interactions, that took place in here, between John, his inner circle of friends, and then Marcus. All those were interesting conversations, even though this movie did carry a little bit of a negative feel, and as I've stated before, just because things in a movie are a good discussion topic doesn't necessarily make it a great movie, and that's how I think the ultimate take on this movie is. It's a good discussion topic, but it's not that great of a movie. And it has nothing to do with Arnold not being here, okay? Because the past movies haven't been about Arnold. They've been about who the Terminators are trying to pursue. It's just that Arnold has such a big screen presence that, you focus on him just as much as that kind of a thing. This was trying to prove that you can do it without Arnold, and I feel like there is potential for it, but the main problem is that for once, I actually don't really feel like this movie is about John Connor. I honestly feel like this movie is about Marcus, and John ended up getting involved anyway because of a mutual link. Because Marcus provides John with the ability to meet Kyle Reese as a young teenager, or maybe an old teenager. Movies do this all the time where they make characters, be at a certain age, but they're a lot shorter than they technically should be. That gets kind of annoying, because I definitely felt like that's just what this movie was about, Marcus, because his interactions definitely carried more depth than John, even though it's to be expected, because Marcus has conflict. John, he doesn't really have conflict until the end of the movie, and even then it's partially because Marcus and other people put him there. Marcus, he was put into the issues at the very beginning, and he's like, okay, now I gotta deal with this hand that I've been dealt. That kind of a thing. I mean, like, you can argue that's just what happened with John also, but I don't know, just shut up, Battery. Notice? I get it. Yeah. And also, here's something else that gets to me. At the end of the third movie, they illustrate that Skynet does not really have a base. In this movie, all of a sudden, Skynet does have a base, even though it may not exactly be the same base that they mean in the third movie, but all of a sudden, Skynet, an intelligent computer system, is making it a little easier to find a good source point? Yeah. I mean, like, it's complicated, to make an AI threat something to be shafted into a point that you can defeat it, but that's one thing that also gets to me about this movie. And when you get to the end, I can't help but really feel like, other than, Marcus's story arc, not too much happened. Oh yeah, I know what you're thinking. The Resistance Command was destroyed. Well, they're not in the movie enough to really matter that much, if you ask me. This is bureaucrats given a bunch of intelligent orders and ultimately were killed a lot easier than you would think. You know, all the eggs in one basket? Not really a good idea. Right. And even then, how can they be the command of the entire thing? They should just be the command of, like, I don't know, the American branch. Right. Oh yeah, I forgot to give a rating for a T3. I'll be generous with this movie. I'll go full personal free critique on that, okay? I'll be generous to both sides, give them a little bit of doubt there. And then as for my rating with this particular movie, I'm giving it 3 for right now, but I bet if I rewatch it again, I'm going to bump it down. I could be wrong, though I'm keeping this. I'll see how I feel about this movie down the line. Who knows? I might change. I might go T3 again, yeah. So sorry that wasn't exactly the best wave of thoughts for that one, but yeah. And then moving on to Terminator Genisys, which I saw for the first time a couple of days ago. Well, since I had completely forgotten about all of the stuff that I saw in the trailers for it, I only watched the first couple, so I avoided the trailers that did spoil a lot of stuff. I found myself, you know, impressed with a good amount of things that this movie did, because having the re-explanation of Arnold be that he was sent back way before the events of the first movie ever happened. And then he's had all this time to teach Sarah to be like how she is in T2. That's a good justification. The way that they introduced J.K. Simmons in this movie, very clever, albeit a little coincidental, but plausible enough, you know. And then the additional layers of the time traveling concept, interesting. Getting the idea of, you know, let's have the heroes actually do some time traveling of their own. That's an interesting twist. So that was interesting. And it was also interesting to view the different parallels between, you know, Sarah and Reese. Because now, Sarah's like what John was in T3, where she's not too happy with the hand that she's been dealt with being thrust into it, and then Reese, rather than declaring his love for her, you get the idea that even though he does have a couple of feelings for her at the start, it's not exactly the same as he did in the first Terminator, which is nice because unlike the first Terminator, I didn't have that much faith that this Reese, you know, knew what he was doing. You get the idea that he was trained, but you got the idea that he was not as well up here, that kind of a thing. Right. The little bits of one-liners that they did in here, that was a nice welcome change to how things happened. The action scenes, they were well done in my mind. The way the final battle took place, not bad, although I did feel a little bit cheesy. And then, like, the very last moment of the movie, even though that's really the only way it could have actually worked for these characters, yeah. Not really the greatest thoughts on those things there, right? So that's what I liked about it. Now moving on to dislikes. Well, like, once we got halfway through the movie, I began to have a little less faith in this whole time traveling thing, because once they show that John is not actually completely John, the whole bits about, like, the time traveling rule breaking things seem to be getting stretched a little far, you know. I mean, like, I know that they're trying to, like, reboot the franchise with this movie, but as I kind of alluded to when I first started making this video, at some point when you do time traveling things, it does reach a level of overkill, and this movie came real dang close to that. It was just because I was enjoying enough of other stuff that was going on that I was able to, you know, kind of forgive that. But then, like, as I mentioned in Salvation, again, Skynet ends up giving the humans a way too easy way of, destroying it, and then also like having Skynet, break off into like an alternate version of itself, that kind of a thing. I mean, like this, it makes a little bit more sense for the becoming self-aware thing to happen, okay? Even though it's nonetheless giving Skynet a little bit of personality, it's kind of stupid at the same time, even though you can argue a little bit of cleverness, but like, it just, I just don't I don't know, just what they did in T3 with the idea of, you can't totally destroy Skynet makes sense. Even though, despite saying that at the beginning, when the Resistance was describing that, they seem to have, triumphed over the machines, yeah, because it does seem like a good amount of people did believe that before, based on what I remember about reading about this franchise. I could be wrong. The only part of this franchise I've seen is the movies, and I think it's staying that way. But yeah, that was odd, yeah. And there was a fair amount of Will Ferrell humor, despite the good one-liners, and then Arnold having fatherly feelings for Sarah. Now that was a touching scene, but the problem was it was too brief. It lasted like 15 seconds. That kind of a thing. It should have lasted a little bit longer. Now, I think people will argue that the bullet bit between Arnold and Reese, added to it, but I just feel like they should have done at least one more bit with that, and the protect my Sarah bit, that doesn't count, because it hadn't been justified enough. I mean, don't get me wrong, it had been brought up to the point where that was clearly what was in our minds, okay, but they should have tried just a little more on that angle. That could have been a lot more touching than it was, other than just a small aww bit, Because, like, when Arnold was sacrificing himself, I did feel like I should have felt more sad to see him die than I was. I only felt like a twinge. I should have been able to feel a lot more, Right. And then, of course, there's the idea of who actually sent Arnold back, which future movies in this continuity might have answered. I'm not actually too picky about that, to be honest, because there's any number of possibilities, but yeah, that's definitely something that's going to be sticking with people's minds for a while, yeah. So ultimately, I do think that I preferred this over Salvation based on this watch of it, but like with Salvation and T3, I might end up changing my opinion on it, yeah. So, free personally, and then, even though I don't really like doing this a little bit under that for critique, that kind of a thing, because I bet my opinion of the movie is gonna change, yeah. And then there's the idea that James Cameron might be returning to make one more movie for this franchise and then kill it. Well, I really would hope that that would be the case, because like given how this has turned into reboot after reboot after reboot, just, figure out a point to where you can end it, or make a new TV show, that kind of a thing. I've never seen Sarah Connor Chronicles, but you gotta do something about it so you don't leave us with, like, the kind of bad tastes that these movies have left in us, like a whole bunch of other things. Rocky 5, Die Hard 5, even though I've never seen that movie. I really should get off my butt and watch that, yeah. So I would like to see one more movie, but really hope it would be the last one, and just, yeah. Well, almost half an hour. Whew. Guess I had a lot to say. See ya.